What is going on out there, peeps? Like we said, a lot of things are rocking and rolling over there in Iraq, and that's what we are looking for. Some really good news, and I know a lot of people have brought up some interesting questions, so let's get to them here in a second. A quick reminder, everybody, that Pimpy's Investment Chat is the same name as my YouTube channel. Come join us over here. It's free to do so. The link will be in the description. We do talk about all kinds of different types of investments, including gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, you name it. Come on in. It's free to do so. There is a second group called Hidden Things in Front of Your Eyes. We do talk about a lot of things in here as well. And we do cover some things that are considered current events or conspiracy things. So, links in the description as well. So, both free to join. Come on over. Check us out. Anyways, what's going on? So, the state of law, activating the political and economical aspects of the most prominent outcome of the dialogue with America. So what we've been hoping for to come out of these meetings is that Iraq is, their sovereignty is recognized once again. Now, I know some people are like, well, I thought they were a sovereign nation. Well, they're a sovereign nation, but they're not recognized as a sovereign nation. And what I mean by that is, in order to be a sovereign nation, you have to have an internationally recognized currency. They're in Chapter 7, and yes, they've moved back, and they've been moved out, and they moved back, they've been moved out, and they've been moved back. So anyways, nonetheless, is I know the last article that I actually read said that they were being moved back into Chapter 7. I don't know if it was ever actually officially done, and that's right in the heat of when they couldn't get a prime minister to decide on until Al-Qademi got in there. So that is a good question. I've not seen anything to the contrary. But nonetheless, let's go over what's going on because, again, their goal is to be a sovereign nation once again. So the leader of the State of Law Coalition, led by Maliki, saw that activating the political and economical aspects was one of the most prominent results of the strategic dialogue with America. Yes, that's what we're looking for, is to be on the international scene once again. So the press statement, the results of the first round of negotiations are positive, but we're still waiting for the details to reach an agreement that preserves the supreme national interest and affirms national sovereignty and keeps Iraq from the policy of regional access. So yes, they're looking to be a sovereign nation again. Okay, the most important point is the confirmation of the American side that intentions to reduce the number of forces in Iraq and will not have permanent bases, in addition to activating the political and economical aspects to develop bilateral relations between the two countries. So, I don't know. I think it's going to have a lot to do with how smoothly things are going for Al-Qademi. Things seem to be going very well. We know that that lady from the United Nations, bless heart's keeping a close eye on him, and she's been dealing with over there Barzani in Halabasi over there in Kurdistan. So very interesting. The government will not restore border crossing without controlled militias. All right, so political expert Solomon confirmed that the government would not be able to restore border crossing without controlling the militia. The government is unable to control the border crossing, and any attempt to recover it from the militia and parties will not work without the militia being controlled and the assassination teams dismantled. For those you don't know, there was a plot to assassinate Al-Qademi. Prime Minister Al-Qademi knows the solution, but if he is silent in the face of an armed threat from the Rafah coalition, how will he resist the militia? Or reset, not resist. Oh, it is resist. Okay. How can he resist the militia? Look, you know what? He's just got to build up his army. At one time, Iraq had the third largest army in the world, and now they've been decimated. So I'm curious to see where that goes. Okay, some interesting articles coming up here. The parliamentary warning against relying on a central bank for salaries. So the Financial Committee of the Iraq Parliament today, Saturday, warned against relying on the central banks of Iraq to provide cash for the purpose of paying the salaries of employees and retirees. So I love how they call them salaries. Really is. It's just, they get their normal monthly checks. They're what we would call entitlement programs. They're entitled to them. They're retired. As some of them are still working, obviously. Committee member Saadi said to the news the central bank cannot rely on in the case of providing liquidity. As it is a monetary institution, its first goal is to maintain price stability and withdraw any money from the central bank. It is against the law of the bank. And this withdrawal will be for its negative effects, including rise in prices. And there will be a cash inflation. Okay? The Central Bank of Iraq can manage some tasks for international borrowing, and Iraq is currently suffering from administrative issues, not financial, in a lack of liquidity. Therefore, the administration problem must be solved to and confront the financial and economical crisis. So, look, we've been saying that they need to borrow internally and avoid borrowing externally. Is this the bank trying to say they can't do it? Well, I know that Trump was pumping out money like it was Christmas cards and making sure that central banks everywhere were liquid. So this should be interesting, but I don't know so much that we want to pump them up with U.S. dollars as much as we just want their currency to be stronger. A member of the advisory board of the U.S. president had expressed on Friday his fears that the Iraq government would use the existing $60 billion in cash reserves in the United States. For those you remember, Trump was on the news. He was pissed off whenever they voted to get Americans out of there. He said, "We have their cash. We have their $60 billion. So now Trump's expressing, and he expressed it on Fridays, his fear that the Iraq government would use the existing $60 billion in cash reserves in the United States. While he warned that this would lead to the deterioration of the Iraqi currency and increase in price, he stressed that there would be an agreement to guarantee the presence of the U.S. military. Okay, so obviously we don't want them to use the $60 billion, because if they bring in more U.S. dollars and they rely more on a dual currency, this is not good. To strengthen their own currency, they need to stick to using their currency only. All right, so Trump's warning them, you guys, if you do this, you could decrease, and it would cause the deterioration of the Iraqi dinar. So Iraq is going through several financial crises due to the drop in oil prices since the outbreak of the Rona, which led to fears of the impact of the decline and lack of revenues on the federal budget for 2020, and the impact of operational budgets and salaries. Okay, so Iraq has not yet approved the 2020 budget as a result of ongoing protests since last October, which has led to the resignation of Mahdi. So it looks like there's a couple things they need to still get done there. I know a lot of people were anticipating some changes happening sometime this month. I'm curious to see what direction they go into, if there are other options other than grabbing the money out of the United States. And I'm not so sure that Trump would allow it. Even though it is their money, this ought to be interesting. The strategic dialogue between Baghdad and Washington has achieved Iraqi success. Good. That's what we like to hear. So, Prime Minister Dodd said on Saturday that Iraq is open to cooperation with any country except Israel for initial reasons. Yeah, you think? Dodd was said in a press statement following by al-Masala. The strategic dialogue between Baghdad and the United States is at least Iraqi and has achieved success. This is at least Iraqi. Okay. Anyways, like I said, when I translate these into English, it's not exactly the easiest to read when you're reading it word for word. Explained that there is no veto from Iraq to cooperate and deal with countries in the world except Israel for initial reasons, adding that the relationship with the countries of the region and the world is open on the basis of positive neutrality and interest of Iraq, and on this basis cooperations between Baghdad and Washington will take place. So look, if they're willing to take help from anywhere, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of countries, especially China, who's going to take interest in that invitation, whose goal is to take control of most all major shipping ports, including the one there by Saudi Arabia and Iraq, which is the key and gateway into doing business in the Middle East. So this ought to be interesting. I'm not so sure that Trump's going to go for that, considering we have two battle groups now heading to China. For those who are unaware, there are two battle groups there, not one, but two, and one of them is now in the disputed seas. That's not being talked about in the news because they're too busy being focused on talking trash about Trump instead of what's going on around the world. So, where we at? He considered the most of the statement and accusations against the dialogue between Baghdad and Washington were not fair. It did not take into account truth and content of this dialogue, and did not pay attention to what the Iraqi government headed by al-Qadimi wanted. Adding the dialogue directly and explicitly indicating the United States support for Iraq's sovereignty and assist in various fields, and its support in international forums, in addition to reducing the numbers of American troops in Iraq's need, and the United States' unwillingness to establish any bases and stable military presence in our country. These are keys that are not in the interest of Iraq today or tomorrow. Okay, so yeah, I told you this is what they're bucking for right now. That seems to be in almost every article. What is that? Yeah, their sovereignty. They don't have an internationally recognized currency. That's why you can't go down to the bank like you could the Vietnam Dong and just buy Iraqi Dinar. You have to go through the exchange. They have to be recognized as a sovereign nation once again, and they are pushing for it. Not only that, you can see they need to be. Look at this, and they need the United States. Let me get the words out, to help them and support them on international forums. In other words, they need to get back out there and do business with the world. The United States State Department, the dialogue with Baghdad was excellent and will take us to new eras and relationships. Okay, so again, it's just more of the same thing. All the parties talking about what they need, what they want. We support the creation of complete democracy in Iraq. We want to support Iraq to enjoy effective democracy, calling for returning the displaced to their areas and achieve stability. So, is that going to be possible? It seems that way. It seems like al-Qadimi's a very willing participant to do what it takes to make sure the Iraqi people become a stable and growing nation again. But like always, when it comes to these types of countries, they look one way and we'll see what happens on the next. We're satisfied, and there is no doubt that the strategic dialogue between the United States of America and Iraq is just the first step. And this step is very positive, and we see it as a way to deepen bilateral relations with Iraq. You know that we have been in Iraq for nearly 2 decades, and we have shed a lot of light on the military and security sides. So the issue is ISIS, and they're not the only one. There's other proxy groups sitting on the outside of these border cities waiting to just hoping that the United States leaves. I know Iran is hoping for the same thing, and they're going to hope that their influence to grab control of Iraq is a possibility. I don't see it happening. Iraq has been teaming up with China. Losing Iraq, in my opinion, would cause us to lose control of the Middle East. I know we got a lot of allies there, but this would just be a bad situation if China was able to get into Iraq and grab control of it somehow. The Iraq receive U.S. political and economical support. Good. Members of the Kurdistan Democratic Party said on Friday, we'll have U.S. political and economical support. So the American forces will remain in the bases of al-Assad and al-Taji, while reducing the number of forces between 2,500 and 3,000 soldiers. This is provided that the security of the remaining forces is guaranteed and protected in Iraq, and that American political, military, and economical support is provided to Iraq, knowing that Iran and its supporters have no objection to the acronym for far from the media drumming. So, yeah, Iran's not going to be happy about that. Anyways, it goes on and on. What we're learning right here is, look at this. Washington provided that the sovereignty is protected. Okay, so what does this mean? So this is what we're looking for. Moussaoui said Friday that the coalition supported a serious dialogue between Iraq and Washington. Moussaoui stated that the American side is trying to come out with an accomplishment for the United States during these negotiations, and that what is important is the current negotiations is the exit of American forces from Iraq. The exit of American forces from Iraq is a basic Iraqi demand, and that America is cunning in false policies towards Iraq. Okay, interesting. the only card the Americans use in its mandate to help fight ISIS during the al-Abadi government, and that the support of the Al-Fatah, Amiri coalition, and the rest of the political forces of Iraq negotiators has terrorized the American side. No, they have not terrorized our side at all. So, look, we know they want their sovereignty. That's very important for us, okay? So, what it comes down to is this. What I'm looking for, like I told you guys in the negotiations, is Iraq's ability to demonstrate that they could be independent and that they deserve their sovereignty, and that the country is stable now and that they're ready to go in the right directions. But, again, the negotiations are ongoing. I know a lot of people have asked questions about the dinar, but here's the thing. It does no good if they don't have their own sovereignty. So I believe that's what the true issue is. That's what they're really working forward to, and that is getting their sovereignty, being recognized internationally, once again, able to do business on a more international scene. So let's keep our fingers crossed, because it looks like they're heading in that right direction. Let's hope it's very soon, though. All right? All right, then. I'll catch you there.